Yesterday was my birthday, and I woke up late. At the time, I thought that the rush of getting ready for work would be the worst part of my day, but looking back, it was the high point. I didn't have change for the bus, so I needed to stop by a convenience store on the way to break the $20 I had. Luckily, there wasn't a line when I got there, so I grabbed a pack of gum and handed the money to the man behind the counter. Usually this man would look at me with a general indifference when handling my transactions, but this morning, he was smiling warmly, like I was an old friend. Instead of just handing me my change, the man started looking around as if in search of something without knowing what he wanted to find, and eventually plucked a lighter from the display on the counter. "Here, for you, my friend." "I don't want that." "Oh, a different color?" He started to put it back. "No, I don't want to buy a lighter," I said impatiently, assuming that the smile was him trying to get me to spend more money. "You misunderstand," he replied, still smiling. "A gift. No charge." After glancing at my change and guessing that he was telling the truth, I took the money and lighter. "Thanks," I mumbled, confused, shoving the money and lighter in my pocket so I could hurry to the bus. "You're very welcome," he called as I made my way to the door. "Happy birthday, AJ." I stopped long enough for a shiver to crawl up my spine, then chose to keep walking. It was strange enough that he knew my name, but the fact that he knew it was my birthday was just creepy. I never tell anyone that it's my birthday, and I've never showed him my ID before. The strangeness continued on the bus. When I tried to pay for my ticket, the driver placed a hand over the money slot and manually printed out a day pass on the machine. Before I could ask why, he smiled and gestured to the ticket. "Not today, AJ. Happy birthday." I nodded and took the ticket, sat down and started mulling it over, trying to make sense of these surprise well-wishes. Someone, for some reason, must have decided to give my birthday a memorable start by paying these guys to be nice to me. Right? Pathetically, I realized that I didn't know anyone who would go to those lengths to mess with me. I don't have any friends outside of work, and I'm not even really close to any of my coworkers, so none of them would even know my birthday. More importantly, how would someone know ahead of time that I would be at the convenience store when I didn't even know it? And how would they know that I'd be on a later bus than usual? After a few minutes, my stop was on the other side of the intersection we were at, right in front of the large parking lot in the supermarket where I stock shelves. I started tapping my foot, worried that I'd be more than a few minutes late if the light didn't change quickly. The bus driver sighed happily and turned on the intercom. "All right, everyone, we have just enough time to do something special before this light changes." When I looked around me, I expected that the other passengers would look just as confused as me. Not that they would all be looking at me like they were. Warm smiles, familiar stares, all in my direction. I stood up, but the driver, who was now beside me, lightly pushed me back in my seat. "Don't be embarrassed, pal. Just be happy that we're not giving you birthday spankings." The other passengers laughed at that. I felt helpless, surrounded by all of these strangers that seemed to be planning something for me. I always thought that I would run away in a fight-or-flight scenario, but apparently there was a third option. Fright. I was glued to the spot, terrified, and couldn't will myself to do anything about it. The driver patted my shoulder and took a step back. "Okay, you all ready?" He held his hands out and started waving them around like a conductor. "And a 1, a 2, and a... Happy birthday to you," the passengers and driver sang together. "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear AJ. Happy birthday to you." "And many more," the driver added, which got a hearty laugh out of the passengers. I was stunned into silence. Again, I had the feeling of being messed with, as though these people were in on a joke, but something was so incredibly off about it. It didn't feel like strangers pranking a target. It felt like the awkward and wholesome gestures of family and friends. To see it, to feel it from complete strangers was like I was being violated. Before I could muster up the courage to ask the driver who put everyone up to this, he returned to his seat, chuckling to himself. The light turned green and he drove to the bus stop, where he patiently waited for me to get off the bus. Instead of pressing this, I took my chance to leave, heading for the back door so I could avoid the driver. When I began walking past the other passengers, they stood up and started holding things up to give me. An old woman tried to give me her lip balm. A skater held out his board and told me to take it. A teenage girl offered her cell phone. A heavy-set man in a hoodie and sweatpants produced what I could only assume was a used wad of tissue paper, then reconsidered and took off his glasses. "You nearsighted? Try 'em on." Rushing past them, and making an effort not to actually start running in the process, I shook my head at them and said the first thing that came to mind. "No thanks, you're too kind. The song was more than enough." They took my words at face value and nodded to themselves in agreement, the big guy putting his glasses on and blowing his nose. I hopped off the bus, unable to breathe a sigh of relief until I saw the door close behind me, and stood in silence while watching it drive away. After a moment, the passengers stopped looking in my direction and returned to their seats. I hated how normal it looked and imagined that, instead of the real estate ad on the side of the bus, the space was taken up entirely by the words, "Yes, weird shit just happened in here and we don't get it either." When the bus was out of view, I realized that I was definitely late for work and started walking through the large parking lot to the supermarket. I was grateful for the distraction and tried to delude myself into thinking that it could have been an elaborate prank. I entered the chilly store, shivering more from my own unsettling experience than the air conditioning, and made a beeline for the employees' area. As I passed the door greeter, an old man sitting on a chair, he grumbled, "Happy birthday, AJ," and held out his cane as a gift. My heart dropped and my pace quickened. "Just a prank," I muttered to myself, turning the only answer I had into a mantra. "Just a prank, just a prank, just a prank." As if to prove me wrong and unsettle me further, everyone I passed on the way to the employees' area greeted me with the words, "Happy birthday." I stared at the ground ahead of me and pretended that I couldn't hear them. I reached the employees' area and went into the bathroom, where I took a moment to catch my breath while leaning against the wall of lockers. Just a prank, just an impossibly elaborate mindfuck of a prank. The last few years, I'd kept the fact that today was my birthday to myself. I didn't have anyone here that I was close to. The workday was like any other day, and my coworkers had no reason to think it was special. The only difference on my end was that my old high school friends would send me birthday greetings on Facebook, and I would expect a call or a text from my mom. It was like a stark reminder that I was lonely, but since I was kept to myself, it was like a self-imposed isolation. I already didn't like my birthdays, not in the last few quiet years of my life, but this was an entirely different hell. After calming myself down, I came to the realization that I couldn't handle this all day. I had to just head home, bunker down, and hope that everything was fine again tomorrow. If not, what would everyone be saying? "Happy Wednesday, AJ. Here's my wallet. Or would you like my wedding ring?" No, this had to be connected to my birthday. I opened up my locker and, instead of taking out my uniform shirt like usual, turned my radio on and made sure I was on the right channel. I contacted my department manager, a hard-ass, who was likely already fuming about me being late, and told him that I wasn't feeling well and had to go home. Instead of getting the warm and fuzzy response I expected, I got a jarringly normal, angry response. "Seriously? You couldn't call ahead of time? You've gotta be He exhaled angrily. "Just wait there." I turned the radio off and waited by my locker, expecting to be verbally chewed up and spit out, as is the usual for anyone who pisses my boss off. After the morning I was having, I almost welcomed it. As the door opened a couple of minutes later, my red-faced department manager walked in. When he passed the threshold, I saw a transition. The fury in his eyes melted away, replaced by a docile haze. His grimace was wiped away and replaced with a closed-mouthed smile that was foreign to my manager's face. It was as though I saw a level of this strange influence that I shouldn't have. I could swear that there were invisible strings being pulled before my eyes. "Hey, Jay, so good to see you. Happy birthday!" Those words, kind words that would never leave my boss's lips if he was in control of himself, were the final pieces to me in understanding what was happening, though the question of why eluded me. That didn't matter. I had to think quick on my feet. "I want a gift," I blurted out. He nodded, accepting the selfish demand as completely reasonable. "What would you like?" He started shoving his hands into his pockets, as if to consider what he had on him. "I have my phone, radio, a ride home," I said quickly, before adding, in silence, for the sake of my own sanity. My department manager mimed the act of zipping his lips up and motioned for me to follow him. We walked right out of the store, and I was relieved to see that everyone was following what I assumed were the rules of whatever the hell was happening. They wished me happy birthday, offered me presents, a beautiful cashier making a very lewd offer that I won't repeat here because it makes me blush to remember it, and they all knew my name. In a way, now that I understood it, I knew how terrible my newfound power, one could call it a curse, was. People offering their precious belongings, their bodies, while under some sort of strange influence. It would be immoral for me to take advantage of any of it. The ride home was quiet, and I needed that. I watched my boss drive away from the curb. After he got far enough away that he was out of range, the car slowed to a stop for a moment, then kept going. When I got home, I went back to sleep for a few hours, then called my boss. He seemed like he was back to normal, but when I thanked him for driving me home, the way he stumbled around saying it wasn't any trouble makes me think that he didn't remember what happened before he started driving back to work. Whatever created this range of influence around me seemed to not want the affected people to remember their experiences. I got a call not long after. My mother, wishing me a happy birthday and asking me if I'll be visiting for Thanksgiving. I told her that I'd have to check my schedule, but I wanted to. After spending the afternoon and evening mulling everything over, I waited until midnight and walked to the convenience store. A different man was behind the counter. I bought another pack of gum and paid in cash. He didn't say a word to me, and I was okay with that. The strange influence that the day had on everyone around me has passed, and things seem to be back to normal. I can only guess why it happened, and my best answer comes from the feeling of familiarity that I got from the bus of singing strangers. They treated me like family, like we were close, and it was something that I missed having so badly over the past few years that I'd begun resenting my own birthday. Maybe, somehow, this resentment forced those around me to fill the void that I've been feeling, a sort of unconscious power I didn't know I had. Hell, for all I know, some sort of supernatural outside force finds people like me and gives us this power during our birthdays. I don't know, and I don't want to know. The void I've been feeling, either way, is probably responsible. I'm lonely. I've been lonely. And if I don't put myself out there in the next year, this could happen again. A self-fulfilling prophecy. The best thing I can do now is make friends.